same tube well are not getting, you know, reported by 2 or 3 or 4
Yes.
IPs.
But we have to sort it out, like if we are going into the water fracking, and the same case comes into that part as well. Like we have the tube well or the water supply scheme constructed first, and then through that particular tube well we are going to deliver water through trucking. So how to tackle that? It's like again 2 different activities. Number first, construction of tube well or repair maintenance of tube well, and then through water trucking.
Yes.
So
Construction
how to
and
reflect
repair
that
is something
activity?
else, and
provision of water.
provision and
Yes, we have to sort it out.
maintenance.
Like, we have to put it
Yeah.
in that list as well.
Okay, well if that was the case, I'd put in, you know, I would put in the tube well maintenance for one activity,
Yes.
and I would put in
Provision of
I would put in water trucking as a second
Exactly.
activity, and I'd just be careful. The only thing you'd have to be careful of is that you don't, the beneficiaries that are being reached by water trucking, you don't double count in the tube well category.
So water trucking is something else.
water network.
Water networking, provision of water through water networking.
I think we also have to put in the water networking, provision of
Water
water through networking,
Yeah.
which is particularly for the camps scenario.
Let's discuss it after we finish the. It seems like an item of detail. So we'll talk about it after, you know, amongst ourselves after we finish the main session. I mean, if there's a genuine need for another activity to be, but if the source of the water was a tube well, then I don't. Yeah, I don't know if we want to double count something by putting in a, you know, by putting in the pipes that come out of a tube well.
No, but
Provision of water is something else.
But in most of the cases, like the tube well or the water supply schemes belong to the government entity, and I think we don't need to reflect that particular activity. Like after then, the concerned IP or the concerned entity is responsible for provision of water through networking in the camp or through water trucking. So that is 2 different activities. Provision of water
Let's
through
discuss it
networking.
after that. Let's discuss it after this. This one sounds a little complicated, so let's not do tube wells. So tell me something else you're doing in the camps.
Change water.
Sorry, say again?
Activity type change.
Just make it the installation of hand pump.
Installation of hand pump.
Okay, hand pump installation. Okay,
Activity target, for example, it's 100.
100 hand pumps. Okay,
20 have been achieved.
20. 20 achieved.
It is ongoing.
Yep. Now the start date is really the date that you started doing that type of activity. So when did you start installing hand pumps in these camps? 1st of February this year or
Is it
last year?
start of the project or start of the activity?
When did the first hand pumps go in? When did you put the first hand pumps in?
Sorry.
When did you put the first hand pumps into the, or when did the project start? Yeah.
Project started. Project started.
Project.
Okay. 1st of February. I just wondered if you've been putting the hand pumps in for years, so you know, might have made it 1st of February 2010. Okay. When do you think you'll have the last? When do you think you have the last hand pump installed? Or when will the last hand pump stop?
Which project here?
Yeah, which is
April.
okay. So let's just say 30 April. District Angu. Saw it up here, didn't I? Just going to copy that. Total, how many people do you want to reach with these hand
5,
pumps?
3, 2, 1.
5, 3, 2, 1. Do you actually know the breakdown by men, women and children? If you don't worry about it, we'll just leave it blank. Okay, how many people do you think the pumps that you've built to date are actually serving? You built 20 to date, which is about 1/5 of them.
It's 20%.
Yeah, 20%.
It's around over 1,000.
1,000, I think.
Yeah.
105, yes.
Okay. And then just your name, your phone number, your email address, any comments you have, and today's date, 7 Feb 2013. Okay? That's all there is to it. And then next week, if you've built another, okay, so everyone see it's in there? Next week, if you build another 10 hand pumps next week, you just change that to 30. So you've now got 30 completed. Make this a little bit more. Maybe you've reached 1,500 people now. And change the end date here to next week's end date. Oh, it's the date updated 14th of February instead of 7th. You don't need to put in a whole new row for that. But let's go talk about water trucking. So let's say for a moment you were doing water trucking. So I'm just going to copy all this information down. Oops. Water. Let's say we're doing water trucking. And you can see here that the water trucking unit of measure is, you can't see it because it's hidden, it's average litres of water trucked per person per day. No, per day, not per person per day. Wait a minute, hopefully I'll make this smaller so I can read it. Average litres of water trucked per day. So let's just say we were.
60 litre water per person per day.
So let's just say we were doing 5,000 litres. 5,000 litres on an average day. And this particular week we're talking about, we achieved 4,000 litres per day. Project is ongoing. Oops. Oh, actually, the end date I'm going to put in this week's date, not the project end date. 7th of Feb, because it's the end of this particular week's water trucking. So let's just copy all those down. Oops. So we were aiming to reach 5,000 people. So let's just, at 5 litres a day, we'll just say that's 1,000 people, targeting 1,000 people. We achieved 4,000 litres a day. So we actually managed to reach 800 people. But we reached slightly less people than we were aiming for, okay, with the water trucking. We trucked a little bit less water than we wanted to. Everybody see that? We wanted to truck 5,000 litres a day, but we only actually managed to truck 4,000 litres a day. So we're not quite trucking enough for the 1,000 people that we wanted to reach. We wanted to reach 1,000 people. In fact, we're trucking enough water for 800. Okay, we're a little bit down on where we want to be this week. So next week, I'm going to go through, just copy all this information again. This is a water trucking one, remember. Water trucking is the only one that we want you to put in a different row for each week. Doesn't take long to copy. I'm doing it now. You'll see how quick it is. So that's 5,000. Let's just say this week we reach 4,500 people. Ongoing. We're now talking about water trucking for 8 Feb 2013 to 14 Feb 2013. New week's water trucking. Rest of these things can just be copied. We still want to reach 1,000 people. And we're now trucking enough water for 900 of them. Okay? So we've got a different row of water trucking data for each week. There's 1 week, there's a second week. Who does water trucking here? Then you don't need to worry about it. Everyone looks really concerned. You understand it?
No, normally the water trucking, particularly in camps, has been done through the contractors, not through.
Okay, but who
organization.
contracts the contractors? Who pays the contractors?
It's like different entities. If UNICEF is going to provide water in camps, then it's particularly UNICEF through contractors.
Okay, so you're going to be filling innocent, so you may be the only one that needs to know. Okay, so for water trucking, we do want a different row for every week. If you're not doing water trucking, you don't need to worry about it. Just, provide us with a row. On the first week you fill it in, provide us with the rows, your activities you're doing, and then next week just update those same rows. You don't need new rows unless it's set for water trucking. And people notice as I went through and filled in the last of the priority columns, the changes from red to white. The last priority column is this column Y, total reached, and if I fill that in, the text changes to be white. And the red colouring goes away to tell you that you've entered the minimum data that you needed to enter. Any questions?
I'm from Solidarity and we will work in 25 schools and 25 BHUs of district Peshawar for wash facilities, that means and safe drinking water. So for sure the BHUs will be in separate union councils. In each union council there is one BHU. So should we fill 25 lines for everything or how
It's up to you. We would prefer that you did. The data is more useful if you do, but at the end of the day, if you just want to create, if you just want to fill in a row for Khyber, FATA, and then provide one for all of the BHUs which are in Hangu, then you can merge them together all the Hangu ones together if you want. But do remember, if you fill in 25 rows, you've only got to do that. You've only got to do that once. You only do that on the first week. The second week, you just go through and update those 25 rows. You don't refill them all in again.
And my second question about the
Can
beneficiaries.
I just interrupt you for a moment. Can I just say that SIND is providing us with 2,500 rows of data. So, and some IPs out there are providing 500 rows of data to, each week. So, there are people out there that are making this work. I know that 25 sounds like a lot, but yeah.
And my second question is about the beneficiaries. So how you will divide it into male, female, and children.
If you know the actual information, if you know the division, then tell us. Just if you know that there's 500 males and 600 females and 300 children, then tell us. But if you don't know, then just put in the total that you're aiming for. If you just put in 1,000, that's okay. If you just put in the total, that's acceptable.
I think for schools it's would be quite easy. Like we can
Another
easily.
But for health facility, it is very
But
difficult.
for BHUs,
It's very
But for BHUs it's a bit tricky.
because we know the average number of patients
you
per
know
day.
catchment
like
population on, but
60 or 70 patients per day. So
If you don't know something, nobody's expecting you to just invent information. Just give us your best guess. You're allowed to estimate. This is going to be used in an emergency context. People all over the country are going to be guessing all sorts of numbers. Any guess is better than nothing, right? I mean, if you've got a choice between leaving it blank and giving us your best guess, then give us your best guess.
But also that point is good that we can easily collect the catchment population or the beneficiaries number from that particular BHU, that how many, how much population is dependent on this particular BHU, and we can put that in our target, and we can increase it in the target achieved once we are into the implementation.
Yeah. No, you mean the number of the population of that specific GC, or the number of patients who attended that BHU every day, weekly or monthly?
For every BHU, when you visit, there is a chart.
Yes.
And immediately it is mentioned that the catchment population.
Engagement population,
Population.
not patients per day.
But it is not as specific as, like, for example, hygiene kit or some other thing for which you are specifically giving hygiene kit every person.
Yes.
The catchment population, maybe some people come as a patient, maybe some people don't, but they are being benefited from this BHU.
Can I just make a point? I don't think you should worry too much about the amount of time that it would take you to fill in the 4W. I suspect, I mean, it might take you an hour on the first week, but after that, I suspect you'll be able to fill in the 4W in, you know, most of you will be able to do it in under 15 minutes. So, something like that. But I think it'll take you far, far longer than that 15 minutes to get the information to put into the 4W. You know, I think it's not going to be the data entry time which uses up your time. It's going to be all the ringing around, trying to find out from your field officers, you know, how many hand pumps have we installed in this camp now? We're up to 7 when we only had 6 last week. You know, when's this project due to finish? That's going to be the things that takes the time, finding out that up-to-date information. But then again, you probably need that up-to-date information to do your normal job anyway. You know.
Okay, for instance, if your project has is based in SIM and KPP both, so can you just use one or but they have to be different?
Who knows? I think you should be.
Send in KPK. There's nothing to stop you entering SIND data. Nothing will stop you entering SIND data into this spreadsheet. And it will get to me, and it will get to OCHA. The step that it won't get to is it won't get to the SIND cluster. So you'll miss out on being, if you don't report it to the SIND IM, you'll miss out on being included in the SIND cluster analysis, which you may want to be in, which may be important to be in. So ideally, if I was you, if you were working in both FATA and SIND, I think the ideal answer is to fill in one spreadsheet for FATA and send it to the FATA IM, and another one for SIND and send it to the SIND IM. They're identical spreadsheets, they're no different. And that will ensure that you get captured by, you know, included in the cluster analyses for both provinces. But if you put SIND data in the KP-FATA sheet, I believe that my KP-FATA colleagues will still send that on to me, and I will still send it on to OCHA. So you will still make it into the Islamabad analyses, and you will still make it into the OCHA analyses, but you'll miss the SIND cluster analyses. At the moment, I've shown you a lot of things which you're going to be sitting there and thinking, man, is this going to be a lot of work for me? Do I really want to do this? You know, there's nothing really in this for me. So I'm now going to, I've saved the best, what I hope is the best to last. And in order to show you what I think is something that you might like, and that might be really useful to you personally, I'm going to close this one down because I've put a whole lot of junk into this one while I was entering, and I'm going to reopen it again without saving. So I'm going to not save, and I've just got to find, now they're all moved around on my desktop, and they all start the same, so that's really unhelpful. Maybe we'll start Excel again. 51. So, we have a spreadsheet which has a 4W which has some data in it. It's not much data, it's only 19 rows of data. Actually it's less, it's 14 rows of data. So it's got a little bit of data for some UNICEF projects from the camps. It's pretty well completed, someone did quite a good job of filling it in. There's no real major problems in there. I'm going to show you something that you can do if you put your data into this 4W. I've shown you this page, the REAPY page. I've shown you the 4W page, and I'm now going to show you the last page, which is called Analyses. So what we have on this Analyses page is 8 tables and 5 charts that will be automatically generated from your data if you put your data into the 4W. You don't need a cluster IM or anyone else to do it for you. You put your data into the 4W and it generates 8 tables and 5 charts showing your data. So let's just take a quick look at those. I'm just going to zoom out so we can see them from afar. We've got